Thank you for watching The Professor and welcome to my channel, The Professor. Certainly, if you haven't subscribed yet, I would advise that you subscribe because when I post a new video, you'll be able to get notice of that and be part of the discussions. So also, I want to let all of you know that this channel is not dedicated only to Eddy Alexandre. I have started the channel with Eddy Alexandre, but my intention is to actually have video comments on everything that's going on in the world and everything that you learn something from. So as I promised all of you that the Eddy Alexandre case, US versus Eddy Alexandre, is a very important case. And the reason why this case is important is there are two reasons why. First, there are a lot of people involved, 62,000 people. And of course, there's a lot of money involved. So this is a case of public interest. And I have promised you that I will keep you abreast of what is going on. So I want to give you updates, two updates, obviously. I want to talk to you about the criminal case, and also I want to talk to you about the civil case. But first, let's talk about the criminal case. As you know that Eddy Alexandre went to court on June 13, where he pleaded not guilty to the new indictment, which I covered in a different video that I made a week or so ago. Certainly, the case is proceeding, the criminal case is proceeding, and I have reason to believe that this case most likely will go to trial. I can't imagine Eddy Alexandre taking a plea, saying that he's guilty. I think that he's been receiving a lot of support from a lot of people in the Haitian community. I've gotten a lot of phone calls, emails from people who said to me that they support Eddy Alexandre. And certainly, I would love to be able to have these people on my channel talking about what kind of man Eddy Alexandre is, because I don't know the man and I don't pretend to know him and to make any assessment about his ethics or his personality. So let's talk about first thing first. Let's talk about the criminal case, okay? The criminal case, of course, you know that this has been going on for a while now. Now, here's what I find interesting. You guys remember that when I first started to comment on Eddy Alexandre case, I have said many times that the case isn't over, that there are still investigations going on and there are people who may have criminal liability. Will have to be careful in terms of what they say, whom they talk to, and what they say, how they say it. Because it's always the thing that we say that really create problem for us. It's not really anybody else. It's the thing that comes out of our mouth. So I have been watching this case very closely. And I have seen something in this case, the case of the United States versus Eddy Alexandre, that I haven't seen in a lot of other cases. And I followed a lot of other cases. I practiced law in the Southern District in New York. I was a former prosecutor, so I'm very, very familiar with the system and exactly how the system works. But here's what happened in Eddy Alexandre case a couple of days ago. The United States government, the Justice Department, filed a protective order, okay? What does it mean, a protective order? So I just want to define that for you so you guys have an understanding of what it is. A protective order is when, for example, there are two types of protective order. There's a protective order for the person to protect someone against somebody else, and there's a protective order for information. In other words, if I have some information that I'm going to give you and I don't want you to share it for the people, I can ask the judge to issue a protective order that would forbid you from releasing that information. So now you understand what is a protective order. It's a protective order against a person or against information, to divulge information. Now, this is a criminal case involving wire fraud, the common fraud, this, as you know. And the question is, the government, the United States government, filed basically a motion. Attached with the motion is an order asking the court to sign an order for protective order against either Eddy Alexandre or his lawyers about information that the government may disclose to them during the discovery process. Now, I talked about discovery before. because by the time this case is over, you guys are going to be an expert on federal criminal procedure, right? Discovery is when somebody's arrested, okay? There is no such thing as a kangaroo court. There's no such thing like got you. The prosecutors has a duty to tell the defense what information that they have, whether that information tend to prove that the person is guilty, whether that information tend to be exculpatory. The word exculpatory means that the person is innocent. All that information the prosecutor has to give to the defense. So in the case of Eddy Alexandre, is nothing different. Eddy Alexandre is charged with 2 crimes. One is commodities fraud. He said something that wasn't true, that was material to the case. And the other is wire fraud. He used computers and telephone to communicate the things that the government said was untrue. So those are the 2 cases. Those are the two crimes that he's being charged with. So the government now has to give to Eddy's attorney whatever information they collected during the investigation. Now remember that this investigation started, I think, sometime around April 12, after Bank of America called the FBI and said that they thought Mr. Alexandre was doing something fishy because they see money moving and so on and so forth. They're the one who reported Mr. Alexandre to the FBI. So if you would remember that the FBI really didn't complete the investigation. In fact, they arrested Eddy Alexandre without an indictment. Usually the government indicts you first. They could spend 2-3 years investigating you, and then they will indict you. And after the indictment, then they'll proceed to arrest you pursuant to the indictment. In this case, they didn't do that. They arrested Eddy Alexandre based on an information by an FBI agent saying, hey, this is what I think the guy is doing, okay? So the investigation is continuing. Now, when I first start talking about this case, I know that Haitian people love to talk. They love to talk about things they know. They love to talk about things they don't know. They love to impress people. They love to talk. And I have said many times that all of the people who invested with Eddy Alexandre and who probably work with Eddy Alexandre, they ought to keep quiet. And if I was someone who was recruiting people for Eddy Alexandre right now, I would be lawyer up. I would have a lawyer on speed dial just in case. Now, let me explain to you why I'm saying this, okay? The US government, the Justice Department, is basically the agency that normally prosecute crime, whether it's white collar crime, blue collar crime, whatever, they prosecute crime. And the agency is very much predictable. I mean, if you are a lawyer, or if you were a lawyer, or if you practice law in any of the federal court anywhere in the United States, you would know that the federal government is very predictable. So when they make a decision or they do something, they don't do it just for the sake of doing it. They're doing it because there's something else that they are thinking of, or there's something else they're trying to prevent, or there's something else that they're about to do. Now, I got a copy of this order in my hand from signed by Judge John P. Cronin. He's a United States District Judge in the Southern District of New York. Now, this order that I have in my hand is a protective order. Now, here's what I'm interested in, okay? There could be a whole bunch of reasons why the government would seek a protective order against disclosure of information, okay? So hear what I'm saying. There could be many reasons why the government would seek a protective order, okay, against disclosure of information that the government provides to the defense attorney, okay? Normally, and I would tell you something, honestly, in reality, the government shouldn't really cares about whether the information is disclosed, because this is what happened. If you are charging me with a crime and you say that I'm guilty of a crime, why do you care who see the evidence? Because the jury's gonna have to see the evidence, right? In order to decide whether I'm guilty or not. Normally, the only time that the government file a protective order to protect information that the government is about to give to an indicted defendant is when the investigation is continuing and the government has other people that they're investigating. They don't want these people to find out. So in this piece of paper that I'm holding in my hand, the U.S. government, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District in New York, filed a protective order in this case and basically forbid, okay, Eddy Alexandre's attorney from releasing, from sharing, from giving to anyone any information that they receive pertaining to this case. Now, let's talk about this for a minute, right? I've already told you that the government has a duty, okay? It's a legal duty under the Constitution to share whatever information that they have. Whether the information tend to prove guilty or innocent, they have to share it. So basically, as a defense attorney, they would give me that information. They say, here's what we have. Usually it's boxes full of paperwork and so on and so forth, right? Then the lawyer would have to review it and see, what they have. So in this case, it would be the same thing, except that they would get it on a disc. They don't do papers anymore. They give it on a diskette and then you look at it. But what I haven't seen in a while, okay, is a protective order in a white collar crime as this crime, because this is a fraud. It's very simple. It's nothing complicated. So I'm telling you guys, the only reason why the U.S. government, the Justice Department is seeking a protective order is because the FBI is investigating other people close to Eddy Alexandre. They're investigating people, and it may be that during that investigation, there may be documents that they give to Emile Bovy, the Eddy Alexandre's attorney, and those documents may mention other people. So they don't want Eddy Alexandre to let other people know that they're being investigated, or they don't want the lawyer, which I don't think the lawyer would do that. I mean, I was a lawyer when I represented people. If somebody else was being investigated by the FBI and I got the information, I wouldn't share with them. That's not my business. I'm not their lawyer. I got nothing to do with it. So I don't think that Eddy's lawyer would ever do that. But I think the protective order is really geared toward Eddy Alexandre, not so much toward the lawyer. It's forbidding Eddy Alexandre to share that information with anybody else. Now, who are the people that the government is investigating? Okay, in this case, okay? Now, I don't know who the people are. I don't have any specific information about them. All I can tell you, based on my experience as a former prosecutor, if I was the prosecutor, I would know exactly who I'd be looking for. I'd be looking at anyone who's close to Eddy Alexandre, family members, people who may know what was going on. I would be looking at people in his organization. If he belongs to community organization, churches, I'd be looking at some of these people. And I got to tell you that I have been investigating this case, and I have read, and I have seen video footage of a particular pastor telling people that there are two things that he believes in. One of it is God, the other is Emini FX. Now, I'm not going to name which pastor said that, because I don't want to do that to him. I don't think it's fair for me to name that person, because that person has not been arrested and nothing had happened. But I am saying to all of you that this case is very far from over. Eddy Alexandre is the first person arrested and charged. Now, whether he's guilty or innocent is not for me to say, it's for the jury to say. But I think the government is looking for other people. They're looking for people who perhaps may have known something, perhaps may have helped Eddy Alexandre in collecting all this money. They may be looking for people who have made statements in the news media that they have collected money on behalf of Emini FX. They may be looking at pastors and other people who were so helpful and helping Eddy Alexandre. Now, this isn't to say that these people knew that this was a Ponzi scheme, as the government say. And as of this date, no one knows for sure whether Eddy Alexandre was really involved in a Ponzi scheme. And I'm not saying he was. I'm saying this is what the government said, that Eddy Alexandre was involving in a Ponzi scheme. And for a Ponzi scheme to work, you have to have other people. You have to have captains. You have to have people under you who either knows that is a Ponzi scheme and they go along with it. A Ponzi scheme is illegal, of course. They know that it is a Ponzi scheme and they agree to be part of it. Okay? Now, what could these people be possibly be charged with? Now, the easiest thing to charge someone is if it's conspiracy. Okay, conspiracy is such a broad way of looking at things legally that you can involve in a conspiracy even if the crime is impossible. And I'll give you an example. Suppose that you and I decided to enter into a conspiracy to kill Michael Jackson. Now, you and I know Michael Jackson is dead. I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. The man is gone. I don't know how long, maybe more than that, right? But the government could charge us with conspiracy, even if it's impossible to kill Michael Jackson. That's the law. And I'll tell you a little bit of story very quickly. The history of conspiracy in the United States is actually one of the very, very few countries that have conspiracy laws the way that they have it. The reason why the conspiracy laws are in the book is because they were trying to find the mobs, you know, the Italian mafia. And it was easier to charge people with conspiracy, and it was easier to prove that they conspire. It's very easy to prove. Okay? It's an agreement between two people to do something illegal. That's the definition of this conspiracy. An agreement could be you and I could be talking to each other and you say, listen, I want to kill John. And I said, yeah, it wouldn't be bad. He's a big man. Could I be involved with you in a conspiracy? Well, if the government wants to say that, they can actually get you convicted in a conspiracy. So in this particular case, in the Eddy Alexandre case, there may be people who either work very closely with Eddy Alexandre or who either knew what was going on. Now, I'm not saying that they knew that there was something illegal, because you don't have to know that there is something illegal, because remember that lack of knowledge is not a defense to breaking the law. In other words, just because you don't know that something is illegal doesn't provide you with an affirmative defense. I mean, if you didn't know it was illegal, it's illegal, you go into prison. That's just the way it is, period. So they don't accept you saying, well, I didn't know. That doesn't happen. So let's assume that there were people who were helping and somehow they don't know that something was illegal. Now, there is something in the law, okay, called when you somehow refuse to look at things, when you say, it's not my business, so I don't know where the money's come from, or it's something that I care about, okay? So there's a willingness for you to avoid the truth. And the truth is, any person who is somewhat, you know, with half a brain would know that if somebody promised you 5% and they're saying that they're investing the money somewhere, the first question I would ask is, well, show me the investment, where the money is coming from. So the fact that you can't say that, well, I kind of knew that there was something wrong, but I didn't want to ask the wrong question. So you are blindfully unaware. That's what basically they call it. You just decided that you weren't going to be part of it. You don't want to talk about it, even though you knew that there's something wrong. So federal law is very, very, very different. And I know that when we talk about fairness, when you talk about what you think is fair, doesn't apply. So what you think is fair may be what you think is fair. But what the law is what the law is. And sometimes we may not agree with the law, but until we change the law remains the law. That's just the way it is. So there are people that maybe right now, as I speak to you, may have criminal liability in this case. And I don't know who they are. I don't have any particular insight into what the FBI is doing. But the only thing that I can tell you, the FBI doesn't talk about investigation, so there's no way for anybody to know until somebody get nabbed, until somebody get arrested, and then they say, oh yeah, we're charging this person with conspiracy. So in that case, I could see a number of people, and I could give you the category of people who could actually get arrested and charged with conspiracy. For example, somebody was recruiting people for Eddy Alexandre who somewhat knew that that this could be a Ponzi scheme. And I know I say the word could, okay? Could be a Ponzi scheme, and willingly decide, oh, I'm not gonna ask the questions, I'm just gonna go along with it, and was making money, they were being paid for that. I could see somebody like that being arrested and charged with conspiracy. or someone who maybe is a pastor who's in the church, and they're telling the congregants and the people at the church, well, you know, we believe in this and this is great and you guys need to invest. And all the time they knew that the money that they were being paid were not from real investment. It was money from other investors that were used to pay them to make it look like somehow that their money had been invested and that they had earned an interest in the money. So all of this, it's illegal, of course. And anyone who participated in it certainly would have criminal liability. So, à bon entendeur, salut. If you are one of these people that been working very closely with Eddy Alexandre, I would give you a very inexpensive advice. You better talk to an attorney. Better do it fast. Because once, if the FBI comes, it would be too late. So you better talk to an attorney, seek some advice. Okay? So now, having said this, that's just the criminal case. That's what's going on. The order, the protective order has been signed. And both Eddy Alexandre and his lawyer have to respect that protective order, because I'll tell you something, the worst thing somebody on bail, on federal bail can do is piss off the judge or do something stupid while you're on bail, because if you do, you will find yourself in prison faster than you can say your last name, because they will revoke your bail, put you in prison, in jail, and wait for you to go to trial. And when you go to trial, you get convicted, the judge will slam you really hard, because they will say that you have no respect for the law, you have no respect for authority. You actually went there and violated the law. So my advice to a lot of people is, you know, don't do it. It just doesn't work. All right. Now, let's talk about the civil case against Eddy Alexandre and MiniFX that was filed by the Federal Trade Commission. And this is a civil case, and it's really, there's really no penalty except that they are there to prevent Eddy Alexandre from ever getting involved in that type of issues and that type of deals, for example. And you remember I said before in another video that even if Eddy Alexandre were to find not guilty, in other words, even if Eddy Alexandre were to go to trial and a jury of 12 people said that he's innocent, I would guarantee you, and I would bet my life on it, based on what I know, there's no way MiniFX would ever be. So if you guys are thinking that somehow this is gonna be over and there's gonna be a MiniFX, ain't gonna happen, please don't believe it. You're going to be highly disappointed. And you can't say that I didn't tell you. I've been telling you this from the beginning. Once the federal government made an arrest, whether the person is innocent or not, let me give you an example. There was a guy, a white guy in Wall Street, I can't remember his name. He was arrested and charged with fraud, okay? Now, a lot of people that were working with him were also arrested for conspiracy, and a lot of them plead guilty. The case went to the Second Circuit Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal said what they charged the people wasn't a crime. So all the people who pleaded guilty now have to seek to take the plea back, because the appellate court said it wasn't a crime, okay? Now, suddenly, the guy was found, well, obviously he appealed the case and he won, so obviously he was not guilty. After he was convicted, he appealed and he won an appeal. Even after he won an appeal, nobody wanted to do business with him. The FTC had gone after him. They said that he could no longer invest people's money. Now, could the guy invest his own money? Yes, he could invest his own money, but he cannot invest anybody's money. So in other words, he cannot accept any money from it. So I'm telling you this just to give you the heads up, just to educate you on really what's going on. Because there are a lot of you out there who, for whatever reason, think that MiniFX will continue. I'm not against MiniFX. You know, I have nothing personal against MiniFX. I'm just here to guide you, to help you, to teach you, to tell you what I know, to impart knowledge to you so that you can make the right decision. So if you think about MiniFX coming back, ain't gonna happen, not in a million years, not ever, 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 it's not gonna happen. Okay, so forget about it. All right. Now, the FTC is going to make sure of that, and they already have, because the receiver, okay, had an interview with Washington Post, and he said very clearly that he had frozen about $60 million in different accounts. I mean, he gave a list of all the different accounts, where he had frozen the money. So those accounts, those monies are there. They will return them to the investors. If you're an investor, the money will be returned to you, at least some of it, when the case is over. And I've said this before. I know a lot of you have been asking questions about when you're going to get your money, what's going to happen. And I've said to you that the case has to be over before you get your money. So you got to wait until the case is over. Okay? Now, I like the fact that you guys subscribe to my channel. I think you could learn a lot from my channel. I want you to continue subscribing. I want you to share the link with other people, let them know what the professor talks about. But this is not a channel dedicated to Eddy Alexandre. I have a whole bunch of issues that I want to talk to you about, especially the Haitian community. And I've certainly, in the next few weeks, I'm going to post other video that has nothing to do with Eddy Alexandre. But I did promise you that I would follow this case toward the end. So I would continue to cover the case. So whenever there's something new filed, just like the protective order that was filed, I'm telling you about it. I will continue to tell you about it. If there's anything that comes up with the receivership, I will let you know. And if you have any questions, as usual, you can always email me, or you can make a comment under my video, or you can send me an email. My email is under my video, nylaw1@gmail.com. So next week, I'm going to have a guest with me, and we're going to talk about what is a financial advisor, what is a money manager, what are the requirements to become a money manager, what are the licenses you need in order to become a money manager, who can become a money manager. There are so many questions that I think you all could learn from. Who's an accredited investor, who's unaccredited investors, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to have someone with me who understands this, who's going to talk about it, and I think all of you can learn something. So please look forward for my video. Hopefully sometime this coming weekend, I would have a guest, and then the video would be posted. So I think all of you certainly can benefit from that. Again, this is the professor. If you didn't know, now you know. And if you're not living on the edge, you're taking way too much space. Thank you for watching. And please do share the video with other people. And do subscribe. And please tell your friends who are interested to subscribe to the professor's channel. I thank you for watching.